For those who don't know, The Irishman was originally supposed to be produced and distributed by Paramount. However, 2016 saw them produce a number of financial flops, including Martin Scorsese's Silence. In addition to an increasingly likely chance that his latest film, The Irishman, would cost far more than the originally projected $50 million or so, Paramount eventually got cold feet and pulled out of the deal. So Scorsese and De Niro took to Cannes Film Festival to auction off the rights to the film, which were immediately bought by a small up-and-coming company called STX Entertainment, whose mission statement involved producing medium to big-budget, adult-orientated mainstream movies. After this, news on the movie went relatively quiet, until there was a flurry of confusing reports suggesting lawsuits were being filed and contracts were not being honoured. It was starting to look like, similarly to Scorsese's Silence, which was decades in the making, that behind-the-scenes issues were going to delay the film. But then it was suddenly announced that The Irishman would be getting made, aiming for a 2019 release date, and streaming service Netflix would be producing the film. Details on how out of nowhere Netflix came to hold the rights to the film were fuzzy. It seemed though that somehow the smaller company STX were muscled out by Netflix, and The Irishman producer Gaston Pavlovich had told STX that he wanted their agreement cancelled. And then a while later it seemed Netflix had lost the China rights, which then went back to STX. It's all a bit confusing, really. Well, recently the director of STX had his say on the whole debacle, telling his side of the story. Earlier last month he sat down with the Hollywood Reporter, who asked him what exactly happened with the film's international rights being in their hands and then suddenly with Netflix, and yet STX still retaining the China rights, to which he replied, "We had fully negotiated the long-term deal, both sides were acting on it, and we were just awaiting signatures from the producer Gaston Pavlovich. Suddenly the signature was getting delayed, and we were getting excuses, and then were told it was because they couldn't get the budget sorted out. We were hearing that the budget needed to be at least $40 million higher than what we agreed. The backstory to this was that the producer had a window from Paramount to go out and get the movie made, with Paramount keeping domestic at the higher budget. Given this information, our deal didn't work for the producer. Then WME managed to find Netflix willing to fund the bigger deal. So the producer wanted us to walk away, and we said, we have a deal, you have to deliver this movie. Once Netflix was saying that they wanted to do it at the higher budget level, the filmmakers wanted to go that route, and there didn't appear to be a way for Marty to make the film he wanted to make for the previously agreed budget. It was a very difficult spot for everyone involved. We tried to offer to finance the movie at a higher budget and put equity together, but ultimately that couldn't be worked out. In the end, we ended up holding on to China because of our strength in that region and because Netflix doesn't have a service there. We acted honourably from start to finish." So an interesting turn of events. When Netflix acquired The Irishman, it was revealed that the movie would cost a whopping $100 million, which has risen since, but it seems this was the root of the problem with STX, in that they were unable to provide the funds for Scorsese to make the film the way he wanted to make it. Because of this, Pavlovich wanted STX to walk away from the project so that Netflix, who had the cash, could take over. And probably reluctantly, they did. At least they still have the China rights. It's unfortunate for STX that they missed out, but it was probably for the best. Of course, if they had the rights, then the movie would have obviously had a significant cinema run, something which is currently in doubt with Netflix, of course, being a streaming service. But can you imagine if halfway through filming they realized that they needed more money and STX didn't have it? What would they do? Would Scorsese have to cut back somehow? The vast majority of the extra expenses is thought to be from the de-aging CGI being used in the film to make the actors look younger. How do you wriggle out of the fact that you've already filmed 70-year-olds as 40-year-olds and now need some money for special effects? You'd end up having to get money from another production company, paving the way for all sorts of rights and contract problems. It's for the best, since that Scorsese will now have all the funds he needs to make the film the best it can possibly be made. And it's just a very real possibility that STX would not have been able to keep up with the ever-increasing costs of the movie, now estimated at $170 million and rising. I appreciate STX's model in wanting to make mid-budget mainstream movies for adults, but this project might have just been a tad too ambitious for them. Thanks for watching.